You're listening to From Imposter to Empowered. I'm your host, Jillian Perrick, master's graduate and success coach for entrepreneurial women. I help you overcome imposter syndrome and fear of rejection so you can be your best self, both in life and in business. Follow me on Instagram at Northern Resolutions. Let's get started. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to From Imposter to Empowered. I know you're surprised that I changed the name of my podcast again, but yes, I did. I am niching down as requested by my business coach. Her name's DL. She's amazing. And she recommended that because I'm an imposter syndrome coach, I should be coaching on imposter syndrome and my podcast should reflect that. So I'm like, okay, I guess you're right. And of course, that's obviously why I'm investing in business coaching, is to get the objective opinion of somebody. And that's why I think it's so important. So I have decided to change the title again, thrice, but it's going to stay this name, and it's called From Imposter to Empowered. So it's similar to my Facebook community, and if you want to get in on that, you can go to the link. I'll put it in the show notes here for my Facebook community, which is named the same as this podcast. So I was just in Vegas over the weekend. Let's just get that out of the way. It was amazing. My sister and my mom and I went and saw the Backstreet Boys. We had such a good time. A girl tried to steal my phone, but I was able to get it back. So that was the only crappy thing that happened this weekend, but I was able to get it back. So that was pretty awesome. And I actually spent the whole weekend not doing anything, like in relation to my business. So yeah, I was on my Instagram a little bit, like perusing around, but I actually hired a VA to do a lot of my Instagram stuff. So having that weight off my shoulders, I still hate batching work and like thinking of captions and stuff, but when I took the pressure off myself of like having to put out content and like new stuff every single week, it was really exhausting me mentally. So having just someone to help me with that has been amazing. So I feel a lot more inspired, and that's why I think you should outsource if that's something that you're considering doing. And you can definitely get somebody for like less than what you think a VA would cost, you know? So if you are stressed out with social media for your business, make sure that you are looking into how you can outsource some stuff so you can leave your brain power for the important stuff, which is helping people. So on the way to Vegas, I was reading Dr. Valerie Young's The Secret Thoughts of Successful Women. It's all about imposter syndrome. Dr. Young is one of the leading people when it comes to research on imposter syndrome, and she does talks about it. Really look up to her. And she talks about, I think it's like 7 defense mechanisms, which are something that I definitely can identify with and stuff that I've researched, and one of them is procrastination. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I think I'm going to do like a podcast episode for each one, and then if it's not like a ton of information for each one, I can do like smaller episodes. But like, we all have experienced procrastination, and if you haven't procrastinated, that's amazing, good for you. But procrastination is like something that I feel like a lot of students deal with. Even a lot of adults deal with. I feel like you can procrastinate pretty much anything in your life. You can procrastinate going to the dentist. You can procrastinate writing an assignment. And with women who experience imposter syndrome, procrastination can mean a whole other slew of things. So essentially, procrastination is delaying your release of your service or your product, or delaying an action. So it's been linked to actual like depression and low self-esteem, anxiety, because you're creating that chaos in your head. So you're creating the chaos of, I know I have something to do. I know I should be doing it, but I'm not doing it. So you might be distracting yourself. You might be looking for easier things to do. Maybe because what you have to do is like a really hard paper that you don't really know what you're doing. So it's hard to get into. I remember when I was doing my master's degree, I had to take a law class. And it's funny because I actually work in a legal field right now. Technically, I work in a legal field. And it was my worst class. Like, I hated doing it. And it was because I was putting it off and trying not to learn anything because I felt like I wasn't grasping it. So it was easier to just ignore the work that I had to do rather than actually put forth the effort, because I think I was internally worried that I wasn't going to be able to grasp it and I was going to feel stupid. Because essentially, you feel like an imposter because you feel like you have something that's wrong with you And for a lot of women, that can be that they're actually stupid. So they actually think, I'm not actually smart, I'm not actually brilliant, I'm not actually good at what I do. The reality to them internally, even if they don't come out and say it, is I think I'm stupid and I'm worried that I am stupid. So when it came to dealing with my own feelings of imposter syndrome, when there was something that I didn't know how to do, when I was dealing with imposter syndrome the most, I would just ignore it. And this also had me procrastinating when I opened projects or papers. I wouldn't read the feedback. So I would procrastinate opening stuff that would reveal my grade because I was afraid that I was going to look at it and be like, oh my God, I got some constructive criticism, or I got some criticism at all. Because even though constructive criticism is good, like people that deal with imposter syndrome like really cannot stand receiving it. So we're creating this stress in our lives because we're putting off something that we know we shouldn't. So we are simultaneously shaming ourselves as we are putting off whatever we're putting off. So not only are you not completing what you need to complete, but you're also telling yourself you should be able to do this. You should, but you're not. So it can create a lot of chaos in our heads around procrastination. Not only does it increase our stress, create all this drama and chaos in our heads, but it also means that we are avoiding rejection or failure. And I know I've talked about it before. Nobody likes experiencing rejection or failure. That's like one of the things that's the biggest when I coach women on this, because they don't want to be seen. You might not want to be revealed as a fraud. Obviously, that's the whole premise around imposter syndrome. But essentially, what you're doing when you procrastinate is you are putting off the expectancy of being rejected or failing. Because when we're not putting out work, or when we're refusing to finish something, if we don't finish something, we can't fail. If you don't put something out, you can't fail. If you're perfecting something to the point of trying to get everything exactly so, and perfectionism is another symptom of imposter syndrome, and I'm going to go into that on a different episode. I have talked about perfectionism a little bit earlier in my podcast, so if you want to check that out, you can. It's when it was still called the growth sequence, and I'm sure you can find them on my episodes here. But definitely in relation to perfectionism and imposter syndrome, procrastination is like kind of an off strand of perfectionism, in that you could be putting something off and like working on something until you think it's perfect, but it's never going to be perfect in your eyes, and you're perfecting it because you think that somebody is going to criticize it if it's not perfect. So procrastination is just a way for you to feel safe. It's just a way for you to stay in your comfort zone and put things off so you don't have to face whatever you have to face. And there are so many people, myself included, once upon a time, in which they say like, oh, I work best under pressure, and oh, when I have a deadline, sometimes I just push it to the last minute. But are you really doing your best work when you're doing that? Probably not. And again, imposter syndrome is not forgiving. So even if you think that you work best under stress, what you're really doing is stressing yourself out, and you're not putting out your best product, which is only going to further your feelings of feeling like an imposter. It's only going to encourage your thoughts in the fact that you really don't know what you're doing, because somebody who knew what they were doing wouldn't do something at the last minute. And you're probably not going to feel as confident in your assignment if you do something like that, right? So definitely procrastination is linked to feeling like the stress is helpful, but it's really just causing drama in your head. And it's also linked to fear of rejection and fear of failure, because if you don't put something out, or if you put something off, you're just putting it off so you don't have to be seen, or that you don't have to feel that embarrassment or sadness or whatever else emotion you have when you're rejected or when you fail. So let's think about some ways that we can offset procrastination. So I like to work in chunks and sections and like time block those sections. So if I had to do an assignment in university, what I would do is I would work on the introduction one day, work on the first and second paragraph the next, and I would allocate a certain amount of time. So like 2 hours or something to work on the introduction, which is super long, but I always gave myself time to research and work things through. And I always stopped when I told myself that I would stop. So instead of sitting down and banging out a whole assignment at once, what I would do is time block and chunk certain areas of my assignment, because I knew that when I would come back and look at it, I could add better things. Or if I read something and thought, oh my God, I can't believe I was like drunk last night writing this assignment. And you can do that too for your business. So you can time block and chunk certain things. You don't have to do a whole podcast episode in a night and edit it and upload it and make sure everything's done. You don't have to do your whole freebie in a night or you are a failure. You can definitely time block and chunk the different things in your business without feeling like you're not getting anything done, because you are, and a little bit is better than not getting it done at all. Another thing is do your shittiest work and get it done. So like I said with assignments when I was in university, I would just bang out an introduction. If that was on my schedule, I would just do an introduction, and even if I was like, wow, this isn't really great, I would come back and look at it. And with basically everything that I do, so podcast episodes, stuff with my business, when I was in university, assignments, I would think that it was the shittiest thing in the world, and then I would sleep on it, come back and be like, oh, this is actually pretty good. Like I literally feel that way about like every Instagram post I write, every podcast episode that I upload. So doing your shittiest work and then coming back and either fixing it or doing your shittiest work and just releasing it into the world. Like, you don't know who you're helping with something that you think is not great. Somebody else probably thinks it is. And you can always go back and you can always do better. So I was in a group coaching program. I'm actually still in it. And this woman was talking about how she started her podcast, and she's like so stressed out about the fact that her first episode was only 6 minutes and it wasn't really great and all this stuff. And I was like, girl, like, your first podcast episode is going to be crappy. And like, it's like your 10th podcast episode is going to be amazing compared to your first. It's just how it's going to be. If you don't put your foot forward, if you don't at least throw something out there, you'll never get started. So procrastination really just causes drama, and it really just causes you more stress. And you really need to depersonalize it and just hit it head on. Just get started, write down anything. One of the things that I also do is I brain dump. So if I have like ideas that I feel like are going in all these different directions, I just open up my journal and I start like brain dumping all my ideas. Even if the sentences don't make any sense, I do my best to just brain dump everything onto the page, and then I'll organize it later. But at least that gets me started, right? So at least I'm starting on an idea without just keeping it in my head and actually doing my best to get it done, even if it's not perfect. So that's been your episode on procrastination. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll be back with an episode next week. See you later. Thanks for listening to From Imposter to Empowered with me, Jillian Perrick, master's graduate and success coach for entrepreneurial women who want to overcome imposter syndrome and fear of rejection. You can find me on Instagram at Northern Resolutions, or info on my services and client reviews at my website, northernresolutions.com. See you next time.